Hello and good evening, my name's Meoni of the Cast, and today you are watching me play Kerbal Space Program. Now I promised to do more episodes of Kerbal Space Program, but to be honest I've been very busy with all sorts of things, Warcraft PTR testing, you name it, all sorts of things. I've just decided to go off right now. So I finally got time to put some time into KSP, and I decided to do something a little bit more, let's say, adventurous. Certainly risky. So we're going to try and get to Duna today. Now, you may be saying, well, I've seen a million videos of people going to Duna. Well, this is going to be one of those videos. Only I'm going to be creating a craft here, which I have already created, which has basically two parts. We have a command module, and we also have a lander. Now, the lander is designed to detach once we're in a Duna orbit, go down, land, take off, then rendezvous in an orbit of Duna. Then the command module uses a fuel, ejects what's left of the lander so it crashes into the surface of the planet, gets rid of it. So we've got rid of that mass, and obviously we transfer the crew across, they're not going to die. And then obviously we bring them back to Kerbin, I was going to say Earth then, and everyone's a winner. So let's show you how I did it. So as you can see on the left there of my staging, this took me quite a while to put together, and this is certainly probably not the most efficient way of doing it. However, you will notice that in the center there are my two sections of the craft, and on the outside going outwards is all of the boosters and various things that will be taking this into both orbit and on its way. But the majority of this stuff will be used simply to get it into orbit because the damn thing weighs so much. So yeah, let's take it into orbit. As you can see, these things just detach nicely. An interesting feature that wasn't exactly intentional is that when the solid rocket boosters, the white ones, detach, it also takes out the boosters below them. Now, I'm going to try and pretend that that's intentional, but it worked fine on nearly every test I did of this. So yeah, it's just a destructive way of decoupling of boosters without actually using a decoupler. So as you can see here, we're just using the actual, we're actually using these three LV-45 engines here just to take us a bit extra, and also we're using the nuclear rocket as well, which is part of the lander. Now, we've got plenty of fuel in that, so that's fine, but we needed this extra bit of oomph to get us to where we need to be, which is exactly why this is an addition to the actual rocket. So as you can see, we're slowly getting there. It's a bit difficult, obviously, with what we have here, but there's plenty of fuel still left in those. So we're going to coast here. We're letting Mechjeb again do some of the work. I'm very lazy, I admit, but it's more about the building and the actual mechanics behind this for me instead of the actual flying. So we're going to coast obviously to the apoapsis, and we're going to actually burn this out. Now, I'm not going to take all of this with me, but yeah, we'll be getting rid of this mass. We have quite a lot of stuff to burn though, so this is going to take a few minutes as we detach those there. Bugger. But I'm fairly sure we'll be fine. We'll be fine. So let's skip on a few million years then, since this is going to take that long. So with the power of editing, you don't have to sit through hours of me basically waiting. So there we go. We should be in a nice circular orbit there that Mechjeb has set up. Just burning those last few meters per second. And there we go. That's pretty good. That's as good as we're going to get anyway. And we have quite a bit of fuel. Obviously, we are using nuclear engines here. So I think the most important thing to do now is plot our course. So we are going to be heading to Duna. So let's zoom out all the way to Duna, as the Germans would say, which is over there. And actually, no, that's targeting Jewel. Let's go to Duna. Yes, we should definitely go to Duna as part of this mission. So, as we can see now, we've had our course set. We are going to use a maneuver planner to go and take us there. So, we are going to make a few adjustments now to the ship. As you can see, this is not its final form, as you may call it. But we need to actually flip this around. This is very Apollo-like. I've built this rather interestingly. It was a bit of an experiment, really. So we're going to rotate this around a little bit so we can have a better look. We're going to stabilize it here with SAS. And then we're going to actually detach. Now, this was an interesting design. I spent ages working on this to make sure it worked. And in the end, I had to use one of these big Rockomax decouplers here. So we're actually going to decouple the decoupler like so, which will fire that forward a little bit. Now we need to basically move this around. As you can see, this was the only way I could really do this. There's probably other ways actually, but it was easier this way for me. So we're going to detach that now. So that's going to be on its own, that decoupler, that Rockomax. A slight problem, I've just noticed that the parachutes are fired, but that's no problem at all. They're not going to do anything in orbit anyway, I don't think. But regardless, so what we're going to do now is we're going to edge our way forward. I'm just cycling through with the bracket keys to the other. There we go. We've just blown off the covers there to the nuclear engine of part of the command module. Now we're going to have to rotate this round and dock it together before it goes out of the way. So we're actually going to go over to this one, the actual burning part of the lander, and go back to this and stabilize it, because obviously we need them to be stable, otherwise trying to dock with it would be virtually impossible. So control from here. Now we're going to use this bad boy. We're going to autopilot it. Simply because we've already got it in a nice place anyway, and I don't want to have to deal with messing around, but we're going to put the target camera on there. I'm very lazy, as you can imagine, but I think an update to Mechjeb has made this so that it uses less RCS than previously, which, as you can tell, it's using a lot less. It's only using it very slightly to just stabilize with that docking crosshair there. So it should be fine. And once this bad boy is docked together, we have our final ship. Now, I really do love this design. Now, this is obviously the typical sort of Apollo mission design with the Saturn V, and indeed like with Apollo 13, as you may have noticed if you have seen that film. Something similar to this was done in that mission. So just finalizing it off a little bit there, and we should be docked. So obviously the next thing to do now is plan a burn for Duna. So we're going to do that now, and I'm going to skip past all of that crap, and we're going to get ourselves in a pretty cool position, because you really don't want to see me having to maneuver my way there. It took me a very long time. I am noob, lol. So this is the speeded up footage I've put together here, just showing you some of the things I had to do. This is the final stage of all the maneuvers I had to do, which was quite a bit actually. I had to wait a very long time for a window. I missed the first one, which was amazingly retarded of me. But here we are, we're coming in finally for a decent encounter with Duna, which is all thanks to Mechjeb saving my ass again. I really need to be a lot better at this game, and the only way to do it is to keep playing it, as you will probably agree. So the more I can learn from Mechjeb, the better. So as you can see, we're coming up now. We're at a bit of a crappy situation, but we're going to circleize around until we are in a circular orbit around Duna, which won't take too long actually. It should be fairly easy to do. Again, I'm using all computerized maneuver planning and such. I accidentally took a screenshot there, which is fantastic. And in this footage you can see me just lowering the periaps just enough to actually go around I don't know how far it is actually above the surface. I can't remember. I think it's something like, I don't know, like 100k. And there we go. So we're going to be 100k above Duna's surface, slowing it down a little bit there. How beautiful and majestic is that? What an amazing planet. So we're going to actually lower the apoaps now, so that we have a nice circular orbit around the planet. And then we can indeed start our descent with the lander to the planet, which is going to be very interesting. So indeed, we're just finalizing the burn off here to circularize our orbit, which should be 100k around the surface of this planet Duna here. Just waiting for it to circularize, and there we go, that'll do. Now we need to make the preparations I before mentioned to actually make it so that this thing can land. So first of all, we need to stabilize our craft, which is still a bit wobbly. Look, you know, it's floating around, and we don't want that, because we're going to have to transfer two people from the command module to the lander module, which is on the left there. So we're going to randomly pick these people. I'm just testing out the lights. I'm going to transfer them across, and then we're going to detach, deaccelerate to the point where we're landing on the planet, and then we're going to go through there, and hopefully we can land this on what fuel we have. So as Fredford Kerman is our volunteer, whether he likes it or not, he will be in command of the lander module as it descends to Duna's surface. Not alone, however, he will be bringing a companion in a second when I decide who that will be, but the other bastard will be unfortunately stuck in the orbit, not knowing if the mission is a success until they reunite later on, or if they do. So let's, without further ado, skip on to us leaving behind the command module and making our way to the surface, wave behind our dreams, and say hello to reality below. So indeed, we are just randomly selecting somewhere. We're letting the autopilot pick a landing spot for us. And indeed, we're going to turn this engine on because it wasn't previously. And this is indeed our landing craft. We do actually have parachutes. We have plenty of them, which will hopefully slow our descent and prevent us using all of our fuel. Not that that's going to happen anyway with a nuclear launcher. And indeed, the amount of fuel that this thing currently has. In fact, the mass might be too high. I'm not entirely sure. Duna is fabled for its hilarious mass problems, as in its gravity is much greater than Kerbin, and indeed we might just splat across the surface. But nil desperandum, we will try, but I don't know if we're going to be able to take off again, which will be part of the glory, really, won't it? So let's see if we can pull this off as we just dip this slightly lower. As you can see, the red marker is showing us where we are predicted to land. So we're actually slowing our vertical speed here and our orbitary speed just enough. In fact, we're only slowing the orbitary speed here. We'll be doing the vertical speed reduction a bit lower, I think, on one of the final burns. But we have plenty of fuel and we have parachutes, so we should be fine, really. Let's skip on a little bit. So as you can see, this is all speeded up footage now of me going ever slower and ever slower, but ever too fast, really, but ever lower indeed, which is, you know, what we wanted to be doing. You know, going towards the surface is a good idea. We're not going to put the landing gear out just yet. We're just slowing down our vertical speed now to the point where we're not going to just smash into a billion pieces when we go too low. Now, the parachutes that deployed earlier should still work. To be honest, they don't look like they've cut off, which means that they've been deployed all this time, just not fully deployed. But they will deploy. So we're just going to put the legs out now. I think we're in a good enough situation to be able to do that. And I accidentally took a picture there, which was fantastically needed. I'm sure you'll agree with that. But as we're coming down here, we're still slowing our vertical speed down. It's still going fairly fast, but we should have plenty of runoff room. And indeed, the parachutes are still yet to deploy, if they will deploy. If they don't, we're about to be turned into the largest crushed can of sardines ever conceived by Kerbin kind. But look at those ridges. This planet really is beautiful. I really do love this element of KSP, and indeed this is, you know, not the first time I've been here, but the first time I've been here recorded. Now, oh look, there goes the parachutes. We're going to get our landing perfectly. We have plenty of fuel, I think, to be able to take off and get back into orbit, or at least we should. If we don't, then I may have balls this up, but at least these Kerbins, Kerbals rather, as that mistake is always used, will probably survive. So we're going to slow this back down now in a second, just as this finishes. Just, oh my god, that final burn. And we should be okay. There we go, that's normal speed we're back to now. We're perfectly fine. There's no need having the fire on at this point. And as we come down for our final descent, just burning that extra little bit just to make sure that we don't get crushed. Just being extra careful, making sure it doesn't wobble over any moment now. There goes the parachutes. The parachutes have just ripped off. They've gone. They have left us behind. They don't want to be with us any longer. Just letting this burn down as slowly as possible so that we don't just fall over instantly. And there we go. We have SAS on, and we are the first Kerbins on Duna, or at least in my save currently. So there we go. Now this is the moment where I realised that the ladder doesn't work or something. So we're actually going to EVA here. We are going to let a Kerbin have a bit of a waltz around, which shouldn't be a problem at all. We should be able to get back in, I think. Actually, I'm not sure if we can. Let's have a look here. I'm just going to turn on the communitron so the people in orbit, well, the guy in orbit knows that we're still okay. Put these solar panels out because, well, we can. We may as well. We're only going to be here for a couple of minutes anyway, so let's make the most of this. Absorb as much data and information and indeed solar energy as we possibly can. We're probably going to need it. We have no parachutes now and very little fuel. But there we go. So let's do the business. Let's get Fredford out so he can stretch his legs and indeed test the waters. Now, as you can see, I'm just trying to see if we could see that in orbit, but I think it's on the other side currently. I'm trying to remember where I put the ladder, and I believe it's here. And will it work? Will it work? Is it long enough? Please be long enough. It's not really that long, but I think we can jump back onto that and make it work. So let's try that. So as Fredford Kerman makes his way out of the landing module and is about to jump, I hope the gravity's enough. I cannot believe I've done this. Have you seen what I've done? I've put a bloody peg here, which is, whoa, okay. Jumping is probably not something I want to do. Let's board very quickly before I mess something up. Let's try that. Try that again, shall we? Right, so we're going to have to get past this peg quite easily. We're just going to, oh god, don't die. Oh god, a bit of a fall there. You'll be fine. No problem, no broken bones. Just a bit of a scuff there. And we just take a look at our majestic lander there, which was designed in awe of what could be done. And it's definitely one of my better designs. That's definitely a screenshot right there as we look up. And there's not a lot to do, obviously. We're just demonstrating the fact that there appears to be less gravity, actually. I think it's just, I'm not sure what it is about Duna, actually. It seems to be horrifically difficult to land on with these engines, but not, I suppose it's not quite as harsh as Kerbin, but we'll see. We should be fine when we take off. Just have to use all of that fuel and we should be able to, you know, we should be fine. So I suppose now the task is trying to get back onto that ladder. A simple jump is not going to suffice, so we're probably going to have to use some RCS here. And indeed, can we do it? Can we do it? Grab the ladder, grab the ladder. Good boy. Right, there we go. Now we have to sort of edge our way around there. And indeed, there's a peg in the way. So how do we get past this? This is definitely a design problem. I bet NASA never had these problems. Okay, let's see if we can let's RCS up from that peg. There we go. Look at those skills. There we go. You see, I probably should just do... In fact, the next video I do on KSP, I promise I will not use Mechjeb. I will do it all myself. And we'll do like a moon mission or something. Just to demonstrate I can do it. Because I think I need to demonstrate it to myself, really. But let's zoom out and show us exactly where we are in this vast, barren landscape here. Just full of ionized rock and just this red planet in its glory. So I suppose the thing left to do now... Oh god, bit of a glitchy camera there. Look at that, how beautiful is that? There's the Orion one, which is the main command module. We're going to have to get up there, which is quite a far distance, actually. I'm not sure if we have enough fuel, but I have an interesting plan. How about we go as far as this fuel runs out to try and just do a orbit of some description, and then we can basically make the command module come and rendezvous with it. I think that would be the best idea, actually, because looking at this fuel, I don't think we're going to get that far up, but we should be able to get some lower orbit, at least. You know, maybe it won't even be good enough for, you know, it'll degrade very quickly, and, you know, it'll be a very slick mission. If we fail, everybody will die. If we don't, then we might do this. So, there we go, there's full throttle. Oh my god. I suppose it'd be a good idea to put these wings away. We'll do that in a second, but, oh god, it's a little bit top heavy. We're just going to power it in this direction and see if we can get any kind of lift. We certainly have lift. Whether it's enough, though, is the other question. I mean, it should be fine. I keep second guessing myself because I can't actually remember what happened when I recorded this. Only that I did record it. I obviously know the outcome, but I can't remember all the stages along the way. So we should be fine now. We're going to bring in these. We're going to retract these panels. We should have done this before we took off, but I was a fool and didn't do it. A fool of a tuck. So we should be fine. Let's skip on a little bit now until we're a little bit higher. We should have no problem. Bring up the landing legs. We should have just enough fuel, I think. Just enough to get us where we need to be. And then we'll do our maneuvers in a second. So we've skipped on a little bit here. We did manage to make a orbit of some description. We don't have exactly a lot of fuel left. We have just enough to make a few shunts towards the thing. But we do have a orbit, even though it is particularly low. And it is stable-ish, so we should be fine. I suppose the thing now is trying to get... look, we don't have a terrible amount of fuel. It might be just enough, but I'm not going to risk it, to be honest. The other tank is absolutely chocker full of stuff. So to save these guys, what I'm going to do is leave them in this orbit. And I'm trying to tab along here to this craft here, but it won't let me take control of it. So we're going to have to go back to the Space Center and switch over to it. Yeah, it's not letting us. So let's go and do that very quickly. Very simply done. You'll see some of my experiments in the background there. Just try and ignore those. But you may remember the Ares 3 is still working, that space station, and it will be used in future videos. Don't worry about that. I've got lots of plans for that space station. Growth is one of them. So here we are with the command module and the poor bastard who's been stranded here. We've got a ton of fuel here, so we're going to actually use a few maneuver nodes, and we're going to make it so that we rendezvous with the lower orbit, which shouldn't be a problem at all. We just phase to it and we should have no problems at all. So let's skip on until we do make a maneuver and indeed a rendezvous with the lander module, and then we'll carry on from there. And indeed, as our great space chariot, the command module, comes into view, we know our rendezvous is working fine. So all we have to do now is make the meet, go closer to it. We're using the autopilot here. And indeed, we switched back to the lander here simply because it was easier to make the final adjustment once we'd lowered the Orion 1 commander module, just to use this leftover fuel. Like I said, just a shunt closer to it, because also it has the RCS on it, whereas the other doesn't have an RCS tank. Completely forgot about that, but obviously we can use the RCS from pretty much here to do the final stages. So let's just dock this bad boy up. And then, of course, we have to transfer our dudes over to the command module, siphon the fuel off, and ditch the tank, pretty much. So there we are, docked, finally, and we can turn off all of this, put the lights back on. As you can see, there's the lander. We have very little fuel in it, but we've got plenty of fuel in this big command module tank. But of course, the thing is, we can't bring back the lunar lander as well. So unfortunately, we're going to say goodbye to it. It's been a great addition. It really has. But to be perfectly honest, it's time to say goodbye. So we're going to bring over Fredford and his friend, who, again, name completely eludes me. And we're going to put him aboard this ship. Now, as you may notice, the reason I'm doing this as well is simply because the command module does have its own set of parachutes that have not been used yet. As you can see them there, the blue rim on the top of the module itself. So we are going to be able to just ditch everything from a command module and land with a parachute once we get back to Kerbin. But we also have the fuel required to get us there. Whereas the lunar lander, I'm afraid, unfortunately has the mass of a giant elephant, the fuel which could be siphoned into it, and no parachute, so it's unfortunately going to have to say goodbye. So there we are. We're going to actually detach this now, say goodbye to the lander. It really did serve us very well indeed, but unfortunately for the lander, this is the last part we're going to see of it. We're just actually remembering to siphon the fuel across, so we have whatever we've got, which really didn't make that much of a difference, but we have certainly got a full tank now. So there we go. rest in peace. This design, like I say, is probably one of my best. Obviously, this does mean with the nuclear engines, this could get probably anywhere in the Kerbin system, which is fantastic. The only problem is with a nuclear engine on a lander is that you're unlikely to be able to land and get off of somewhere. I mean, I'm very surprised I managed to do it with Duna here, but it's better for moons. So we're going to just pivot off the command module here, wave our goodbyes to the lander, and make our way home. And we're actually going to autopilot the lander into the surface of the planet and let it explode, and you'll see that in a second. So as you saw there, because I didn't actually judge the depth properly, the lander said goodbye in its own kind there by just giving one last resilient push against the command module in anger. And there we go, we're pretty much using the fuel up here that's left over in this, and there we go. We do actually still have a bit of fuel left, but we're just going to speed this up and smash it into the ground so that, you know, we can never use it again. There's no point leaving this thing in orbit around Duna forever. I mean, we're probably never going to use it again. It's a bit wasteful, but quite honestly, we have the data we needed for our future excursions to this planet. Need for colonization in the future. We certainly do not need this. So let's speed this up, mega hammer time, and smash it into the ground in glory of our achievements. So as you can see here, it's going straight for it, and we're going to smash it into the ground. So with the destruction of that done, we now have to get back. So as you can see, I'm extending the orbit much further out, so we have a much easier way out of the system. And we have indeed a lot of fuel, so I'm actually going to have to wait a very long time for the window to get home. I did not think it would take quite as long as this, but indeed we have calculated using Mechjeb, but it will take us a bloody long time. We're making our burn finally. We're saying our farewells to Duna. It served us well, and indeed we had some fun. But now we need to go home and get a coffee, that's for sure. So as you can see, I'm just making adjustments here and there. I would usually cut this out, but my god, there was a lot of different adjustments and calculations that I had to do. It wasn't as simple as I expected it would be. But we're going to make a maneuver node just up there to finalize our injection to Kerbin, which shouldn't be particularly too difficult, apart from I missed my window slightly and had to calculate how to rescue it at the last moment. So that's exactly what I ended up doing here. But nevertheless, we did make it. We made it work at least, and we're going to try and put ourselves in an orbit here. Any second now. Like I say, it's very hard to actually follow what I was doing. All of these different maneuvers and such I had to do much later on. I waited another rotation before I could actually get this particular maneuver working. The first one I missed completely, so I think I actually reloaded. Yes, I definitely reloaded so I could take it again. And this one should go without a hitch. So as you can see, I've sped up time. This is again 4 times speed on top of the speed time acceleration in game here, just to make this slightly less painful to watch. And indeed, this time it looks like we're going to make it. So there we are, we have an encounter. We are indeed in the Kerbin system. Now I have to slow this rotation obviously in a moment, but I am going to obviously drop my orbit around Kerbin down to nothing essentially. Because obviously we're not interested in being perfect here. We're just wanting to get back to the planet as fast as possible, so we can deploy the parachute and bring back news and the flight data, of course, which is stored in the command module of our excursion to Duna. So as you can see here, still very complicated this is to look at, I can imagine, unless you are a veteran player of the game. So as you can see, it's wrapping round. And there we go, that should be fine. We're coming close enough to the planet now. It should litho brake, and of course it will make its own orbit there, so we're using braking of the planet. We've still got quite a lot of fuel left, I believe, but there we go. And then we're making a maneuver node here, so that we of course can adjust this just ever so slightly. Oh my god, look at the bloody navigation ball, it went crazy then. Just going to circularize this, which will take absolutely no effort at all, and then we're going to make it land. So we are setting up a landing. We were trying to remember where exactly you landed, where you could land rather, for the command center, the Kerbin command center. Unfortunately, I fucked it up massively. That's not a problem. Well, you know, it shouldn't be an issue at all. But let's skip on to when I actually do this correctly, because this is infuriating to watch back now. So here we are, we're finally coming down now, we're burning in the atmosphere. We have a ton of fuel left in this. I cannot believe how much fuel. So we're actually going to use this to slow us down, along with obviously having, you know, the re-entry effect of the planet slowing us down considerably. I'm just trying to reduce the Gs, because as you can see, we're pulling like in excess of 5 Gs, maybe more on that G meter. I'm not sure if that thing works properly, but if it did, I'm pretty sure the turbines on board here will be turned into green pate by the time we get to the surface, so this definitely helps. We're just helping them out now for the sake of it in this early build of Kerbal Space Program. I'm sure in the future they'll make it so that this would be virtually impossible, with like deadly re-entry being a thing in the future, with like corridors of insertion and such like. But as you can see, we're coming down now. It's fairly straightforward, and I would safely say that's a mission success. I mean, that's the first time really that I've recorded a successful mission getting to Duna with a 2-stage like lander and a module floating around Apollo style. I don't think I could have done that without Mechjeb, I'll be perfectly honest with you. And there we go, we're just going to detach that, say goodbye to that landing material, and obviously we're just going to float down now to the surface. But yeah, if you've liked this video, feel free to leave a like and comment as what you would like to see next in this series. Of course, it takes me a while to do this, of course, with free time and such, but in the next episode, for definite, I'm saying now, I will do a loon, you know, I will prove that I can do something basically involving a moon, probably the moon, and me landing there with the same sort of design ship without the use of Mechjeb, and I will prove to myself that I can do it. Because, I don't know, a lot of you seem to think it's cheating. I seem to think it's just, you know, like using an actual computer where you punch numbers into, which is a lot more realistic than, you know, steering a ship, which you would never be able to do, especially not in a NASA mission. So anyway, thank you for watching my video. My name has been Meoni of Ace Games TV and indeed Clismcast. If you're interested in Warcraft, there's plenty of that content and much more to come from future games and indeed future patches of that game in particular. So thank you for watching my video, and I'll see you next time.